Alright, it's time for part 2 of my favorite games from Next Fest June 2024. For this video, this is going to be including nights 3 and 4 of our coverage, and some of my favorite indie games we had a chance to check out. We are starting things off with A Ranger, a role-puzzling adventure. We play as Gemma, who seems to have the power that the world around her turns into a kind of Sokoban style, which seems like a power right outside of a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Basically, anytime she moves either in a row or a column, anything that is attached to said row or column will move alongside her. She lives in a mysterious world where a force known as static seems to keep things stuck and threatens to consume the world. And she decides to leave the safety of her village to discover who she is and maybe save the world along the way. So our gameplay here is kind of open world puzzle style. You'll explore looking for quests that will involve you completing a variety of puzzles. The rules again are that any object that is connected to her when she either moves in a row or a column will move alongside her. And she can also kind of warp between like the beginning and end of a row column, provided there is the space for her. Objects that are surrounded by the mysterious static cannot be moved, and if she tries to move in a direction where there is kind of static blocking a wall, she will not be able to go past it. So puzzles and the puzzle logic will revolve around you trying to get her or an object that you need to a specific point. Now there is going to be combat in this one, but again it's all going to be puzzle style as you try to line up swords and other implements to the enemies. Now from the demo, I love the art style and the general aesthetic of this one. I don't know kind of how open-ended the main game is going to be, as in will there be bonus puzzles, unlockables, upgrades, etc, etc. But the game itself is definitely going to be on the charming side. Now if you're not a fan of this style of puzzle gameplay, then A Ranger will probably not turn you into a fan. But if you are a puzzle fan looking for a very different take on puzzle design, and going along for a charming adventure, then you should definitely give this one a check. And now for something a little bit more violent with I Am Your Beast. In this game, this is a kind of time trial style FPS. Similar, I guess, in some sense of, say, The Club and some of the other ones we've tried out in recent years. We play as Harding, a military badass who feels like a combination of John Wick and Rambo. When he is called on to do one too many final jobs for the organization that has trained him, he snaps. And they are going to do their damnedest to make him take that job, no matter how many of them he ends up killing. Our gameplay here is about getting through the levels as quickly, as efficiently, and as violently as you can. As you kill enemies, you will earn time back, and the quicker you finish a level, the better your ranking will be. And you must kill all the enemies in a level in order to get the coveted S rank, as this game is incredibly tight in terms of that timing. You'll be able to stomp on enemies' heads, pick up enemies' weapons, throw stuff to get them to drop their weapon almost super hot style, but you are definitely not in a plausible situation here. When the level begins, it is time to start running. Now, I do have a few issues with this game. I am not a huge kind of like time trial, score chasing fan myself, so a major part of this game is definitely going to be about replaying levels to find that perfect line and optimization. You see, anytime an enemy hits you, it does slow you down as well. And your guns are semi-accurate at mid to long range. But a lot of this game is just going to be about constant repetition of finding again that perfect line from beginning to end. And even then, you may still not be good enough to get the S rank in it. There doesn't appear to be too much in terms of variance or improvisation in I Am Your Beast. That, again, there is clearly a preferred way to get through these levels. It reminds me a little bit of when we played Children of the Sun earlier in 2024. The story and the style are definitely the high points for this one. If you're not a fan of, again, like the score chasing, time trial optimization style of FPS play, this game will probably not work for you. But if you're looking for a very solid game and one that is definitely going to make you feel like a badass once you learn how it goes, then definitely give this one a play. We now go to another game about action, but this time with a touch of magic, with Tactical Breach Wizards. This is from the same developer who did Gunpoint. Now we live in a magical world that has also learned about the private military complex. So you have wizards and witches in special forces teams, having magic police forces, and replacing wands and spellbooks with AK-47 staffs, boomstick brooms, and more. When a former CO who has the power to manipulate time seems to be on some kind of murder spree / conspiracy, it's up to her former protege and some friends along the way to solve this case. And we must use the power of guns, magic, and windows. Lots and lots of windows to knock enemies out. Our gameplay here is kind of like a tactical strategy puzzle, somewhat along the lines of, say, an Into the Breach. How this works is that you will breach a room, and you must use your characters in order to deal with all the enemies and complete any objectives in said room. You are always given a preview of what is going to happen when you hit confirm your turn. And your mission is, of course, to deal with all the enemies, keep your characters from getting hit, and do it all as stylishly as possible. Each member of your squad is a unique character with their own weapons and spells that they will learn. Your main character can get the power to give another character an additional action. You can get spells to push enemies around, knock them out windows, knock them into each other into windows, and I think you get the picture. Now, the gameplay, I guess in terms of the difficulty, should be on the moderate side. If you've played any kind of tactical strategy game, you should be well suited to this one. There are bonus challenges you can achieve which do add a bit of difficulty to the game and will require you to learn the rules inside and out. I love the writing and the general setting for Tactical Breach Wizards. From the end of the demo, there is going to be progression in terms of unlocking upgrades and modifiers for each character, but we really didn't get a chance to see too much of that during this demo. This one is definitely an easy recommendation if you're looking for a different kind of tactical strategy game with a bit of humor, a little bit of magic, and a whole lot of guns and windows to go with it. We trade strategy for speed. For our next game, this is Aero GPX. And the simplest plug for this one is that this is basically Indie F-Zero. And whether you love or hate this game is going to be all dependent on that line. So, again, very simple. If you've played any of the F-Zero styles of high speed, high physics-defying racing, then you should be well at home in this one. You'll be, once again, traversing laps that will defy the laws of gravity as you do your best to stay on them and to bump your enemies around to try and knock them out. So we didn't get to see too much, I would say, that is different for the genre from our time with the demo, but this looks like it's going to be a very accurate and faithful take on that style of racing design. So if you are a fan of F-Zero and are still a little sad that we haven't seen a new one either on a Nintendo platform or on the PC, then again, this is a very easy recommendation for you. We now go to a NanoApostle. This is a boss rush high action style game. Think of this as something along the lines of Titan Souls, Elder Souls, that kind of structure. We are a young girl with no memory, and we have been bonded to some kind of cybernetic organism to battle mysterious robots inside an organization. Why do we have no memory? Who are these robots? What is going on here? Well, we're going to have to kill and maim our way through in order to figure things out. So our gameplay here is going to be, again, a very high speed combat. Your main forms of offense and defense will be using your kind of nano slashing and being able to parry almost any attack. Parrying is very important, as this can be used to set up enemies to be stunned, which you can then kind of do like a punishment move to do more damage to them. Progression comes in the form of getting kind of new modules so you can equip your character, and this will define and change your build, such as allowing you to do more damage but less healing, more healing, less damage, that kind of thing. All the bosses are definitely high speed challenges, and you're going to have to learn their patterns and get really good at using your defensive maneuvers if you want to take them down. I enjoy this one as a fan of kind of the boss rush centric style, and this one is looking like it is going to be a challenge to play, and you will feel even more like a badass if you can figure things out and get through these fights unscathed. So if you're looking for another challenging action game and a few bosses to rush and crush along the way, then you definitely want to give this one a try. We now go to Ghost Knight, A Dark Tale. Here, a king is trying to search for immortality and has, of course, caused the dead to come back to life. As one such undead individual, it is up to us to save the kingdom from everything else that gets in our way. The simplest way to describe this game would be an indie take on the Ghosts and Goblins formula. Your character can run, double jump, and throw a myriad of weapons at the enemies that are coming to get them. And like those games, you are going to be attacked from all sides by different enemies, and you'll have to jump, dodge, and attack your way through. Now, from playing this one, having kind of like a double jump and dash from the beginning does open up the level design to some more interesting aspects compared to some of those other games. You have souls that you can pick up that can be used for healing or to activate checkpoints, and more often than not, it's better to activate the checkpoints than it is to do healing. Enemies will attack you from a variety of areas, and you'll have to figure out their patterns to get by. The difficulty in this one is a little bit all over the place. Some sections felt noticeably harder than others, while others felt very easy between one checkpoint to another. The enemies are really quite good at tracking you and hitting you with any one of their projectiles. Some areas seem to feature enemies that just come at you almost infinitely, while some will just have you kind of staying put. There is a greater emphasis on platforming and platforming-based challenges compared to Ghosts and Goblins, and this is helped by the platforming feeling a little bit better and more responsive in this one. But it still feels like a combination that could use a little bit more refinement, especially in terms of trying to hit some of these enemies, and where the overall difficulty of the game will lie in the finished version. So if you are a fan of the Ghosts and Goblins style of action platforming, and looking for another take on it, then definitely give this one a try, and you should be sufficiently challenged by it. We now switch to Maraka. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too badly. This is an action roguelike where you must use the power of magnets to deal with enemies and escape from the mysterious tunnel system. How this works is that your gun will shoot out magnets that you can attach to enemies, objects, and more. When they push a button, you'll pull them towards you, and magnets can attach to other objects while they're connected to one, and you create these just kind of like balls of stuff that you can use to bash into enemies. You also get access to upgrades, and you can also get new tools that can aid you, such as if you magnetize an enemy next to two walls, you can create like a little miniature bomb there. I like the concept of this one. I'm just not quite sure what are the legs of this game. As in, how will it get harder? Will there be any major unlocks? It kind of feels like one of those games that once you kind of figure out the main twists, you can just repeat that again and again. I like, again, the overall concept of this one, and there is some potential here. So if you like to do some very brutal, indirect killing of enemies, then you should give this one a check. We now switch over to Creeper World IDX. The Creeper World series is back, but this time we're going two-dimensional for its own kind of take on a strategy and somewhat of a puzzle-ish design. If you're unfamiliar, each Creeper World game has you dealing with the Creeper, some kind of mysterious substance that just keeps moving and destroying anything and everything in its path. And this time the developer has taken some inspiration from Nota, in that we're not only going to be destroying Creeper, we're going to be destroying pixels, as the entire environment, or most of it, will be completely destructible. The structure of this is that using your kind of capital ship, you must explore each map, gathering the resources you need, as well as energy to produce your fleet of ships. With your fleet, you're able to push back against a creeper, or hopefully you'll be able to push back against it, while looking for upgrade gems that you can use to enhance your ships, as well as the ore to produce anti-creep, which is kind of like a more powerful substance to deal with it. All the while, there will be substances or kind of objects that will produce more and more creep and push out against you. You need to kind of fight back against it and kind of stem the tide in order to set up nullifiers to destroy those objects and make those areas completely safe again. As the game goes on, the maps get larger, new enemies and units for you to produce will be introduced, and things can go from easy to why the heck did the whole screen just murder me very fast. If you enjoyed the kind of full three-dimensional, almost kind of like taking parts of the map and growing, kind of pushing back against the threat of the creeper, you may be disappointed by this one, as the 2 dimensions does mean that you don't have that kind of full control or the kind of tower defense gameplay that the series is known for. But there's still going to be lots of challenge to be had, and I enjoyed this one. So if you enjoy like kind of the Creeper World franchise as a whole, then this should be a no-brainer to check out. And if you found yourself a little bit intimidated by the 3D elements of the previous games, this may be a really solid intro to Creeper for you. We now switch to Mira and the Legend of the Djinn. This is a Metroidvania where you have to stumble upon the last Djinn in existence. In order to save your life, you bond to them, and you go on a quest to see if you can recover their memories and figure out what is happening to the world. I like the aesthetic and the pixel art in this one. You'll be exploring a variety of environments, fighting enemies with different elemental effects and weapons. You'll also gain kind of upgrade or skill gems that you can use to unlock new moves as the game goes on. And of course, as a Metroidvania, you'll get access to multiple movement tech upgrades as well. Now, the game felt good to play, but there's one kind of issue with the combat. This is one of those games where kind of medium and higher quality enemies do not get hit stun. So there's a situation where you'll hit the enemy, you'll get a few hits in and you'll keep attacking, and they will just ignore your attack and smack you. Bosses operate under the same principle, and it felt very annoying to fight those enemies. I didn't see like any way to like get like a stronger attack or the ability to do solid range damage. You do get kind of a projectile attack, but the basic one is incredibly weak, and we just did not get a chance to see what advanced combat elements are here. The movement tech and platforming are all really solid to play, but if the combat doesn't give you, I think, more tools to deal with some of the more advanced enemies, it may end up just being too frustrating to deal with when you're kind of stuck and unable to do any kind of platforming or other things to get around it. So nevertheless, this game does have potential. I've been keeping an eye on this one over like the months and so on, and this version or this demo of Mira is definitely more improved than the last time we played it, so there's still definitely potential here for this game. So you can definitely add this to your list of Metroidvanias to check out, while you of course wait for Silksong, whenever that may be. We now switch over to Starground. This is a logistics resource gathering game very similar to that of Forager, and when we tried out I think Nova Lands in 2023. We are on a small deserted planet and we're going to do what we always do. Start chopping down trees, mining ore, and building up our own production lines, and then get bigger to grow more production lines, and you get the picture. The kind of unique elements that this game is bringing, first is that there is multiplayer, so you do have co-op that you and your friends can team up and do all the production and logistics stuff that you want. The other aspect is that there is a greater emphasis on combat and building weapons compared to some of the other logistics games we've tried. As you gather materials and find new weapon parts and so on, you craft your weapons out of a combination of handles and heads. So if you want a sword, club, sword attached to a sword, club handle, you can do that. Each head has different stats relating to damage, wind up, and so on. And you'll be able to go into different dungeons, collect more resources, fight bosses, and get more loot to then come back and build more. The general idea is sound, but it did feel a little bit more on the slower side in terms of kind of setting up the beginning production chains and logistics, especially compared to some of the other games we played like Forager and Nova Lands. So if you're looking for a kind of casual-ish logistics game and one that you can play with some friends along the way, I would give this one a try. But if you're hoping, at least from what we play of the demo, for one that's going to go like really above and beyond in terms of brand new logistics and production, this one may be a little closer to home in that respect. We now switch over to Airborne Empire, the sequel to Airborne Kingdom. As with the first game, we are controlling a floating city that we must keep the people happy, fed, and make sure there's enough fuel so that it doesn't come careening down to the ground. Like our first game, this is kind of an open world RPG structure, so this is not going to be like a mission-based, level-based design. You have free reign to float around the world, looking for resources, people to help join you, and quests to complete. As you gather materials and complete quests, you'll be able to unlock new tech and upgrades that you can attach to your city. Now, like the first game, you must be very mindful as to where you're building things, as weight is a factor, and you don't want to put everything on kind of one side, or your city will tilt upside down, which doesn't help the people who are living on it. Now, the main concern I have from the demo is that I'm not sure what is going to be new or changed compared to the first game. There's also a sequel that is going to be more of a second helping of the first one and will be released into early access, I believe. So this one, if you missed out on the first one, then I would definitely give this one a check if you like the concept of it, because it really isn't a kind of open world city builder quite like this on the market. And I'll be curious to see what they'll add to kind of differentiate itself compared to the first game. We now go to Kitsune Tails. We play a Kitsune fox who on their first job as a messenger falls in love with a sorceress, but this leads to a love triangle with her childhood friend. And in order to solve the mysteries of love, we're going to do some Super Mario Bros. 3 style platforming. The game itself definitely hits all the notes of that particular style platforming. The physics kind of have that kind of weight that you need to kind of build a momentum before you start running and jumping. There's a P-speed gauge in the upper right, and you'll be exploring the worlds and levels for coins, finding outfits that grant you new powers, and more. Now, there are some interesting differences in terms of level design in this one compared to SMP3. We did this kind of like ghost house section. We were able to use a lantern to knock away the ghosts or keep them from hitting you. There's going to be boss fights, bouncing, and more. I don't know if the coins actually will impact anything. We didn't get to see that much in the demo. I would say the main issue with this one is that if you're hoping for like a brand new 2D platformer, the game's design and structure is definitely built again around Super Mario Bros. 3. So it does have that little bit of jank to how that game played. And I'm hoping in the finished game we see more interesting and varied level and enemy design as well. I like the pixel art and the animations, and the story seems like it's going to be very cute to play through as well. So if you're looking for a kind of romantically themed take on SMP3 platforming, then you should give this one a try. And with that, we're done with today's part, but we are nowhere close to finishing our demo coverage. There's still at least, I think, 2 or maybe 3 more parts at minimum left. You'll find links to all the games down below. If you'd like me to take a look at your game for a future showcase, please reach out. And if that's everyone, thanks for tuning in, and see everyone for the next part of our Next Fest coverage. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and if you're interested in more of my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.